Welcome back to Open Window Politics. Today we're going to be going through the governor predictions for the 2026 midterms. I've never done one of these yet, so bear with me, but I thought it would be fun to take a look at how the governorship elections are looking across the country. We've got, it looks like, 5 states in the competitive range, so we'll be going through each of them. There are a couple interesting examples. Kansas, Iowa, in the lean category, and then the likely category we have Ohio, Vermont, and New Hampshire. You might be curious as to why Vermont and New Hampshire, well, especially Vermont is in the Republican column. They have had a pretty consistent history of voting for pretty moderate Republican governors, and the states have largely gotten used to that, even though they almost always, at least for Vermont, vote on the Democratic side for the presidential and Senate level. But that is an interesting case with those two. And then Iowa, if I remember correctly, that's just a current Republican hold. And as this map predicts, Republicans are on track to keep the seat. And then Kansas is going to be interesting. That's definitely one to keep an eye on. But we'll just be going through the swing states. We'll start out with Nevada. I think Nevada is going to be an interesting case to watch. This state currently has a Republican governor, which was an impressive feat of him to be able to win. I don't remember exactly which year he won, but he's been in the governorship for a while. It was interesting to see him win with that victory. And I think he does hold the incumbency advantage, so I think that will be a beneficial factor. I think that it will be a close race, but I think just with national environment favoring Democrats pretty consistently, I think it'll be close, and I really could see it go into the tilt red margin, but for now I'm going to go with tilt blue for the state of Nevada. And then that brings us to Arizona. In Arizona, I think this one would most likely also be into tilt blue. This is currently a Democratic hold, so the Democrat would be the incumbent, and it'll be interesting to see what happens, but at the moment I would call that into the tilt blue. Of these 5 competitive states, I think Republicans' best hope is probably in Nevada or Michigan. Those two have had a recent history of voting for Republicans, so I think that would be their best hope. As you can see, I put Nevada into the tilt blue. Like I mentioned earlier, though, I could really see it going either way. That's going to be a close state to watch. And then we'll head on down to the other half of the Sun Belt. We'll get to Georgia. Georgia currently has a Republican governor. On the other hand, the state does have 2 Democratic senators, and Democrats saw some great election results come from the state in recent years, post-2024, and the state has largely been shifting further and further to the left. The state went blue famously in 2020 on the presidential level, and then also elected 2 Democrats, both of their Senate seats to the Senate for Democrats, and that was an impressive feat. And I think it will be interesting to see what happens, but for now, I would probably put, it'll also depend on who the nominee is, but I'm not sure who they are off the top of my head, so I'm going to go with tilt blue for the state of Georgia. That brings Democrats to 23 governorships, to 25 for Republicans, and then that leaves us with the 2 Rust Belt states here. So as you can see, Pennsylvania is actually in the likely blue column, which is a pretty impressive feat for Democrats. The current governor, Shapiro, is a Democrat, and he has largely been regarded as pretty popular. Last time he was up for re-election, he ran against a very Trump-like figure that was a very polarizing figure that did not play well to independents and moderates of all political parties, which is why the Democrat was able to do so well in the governorship. And I think that Shapiro would probably be able to win again, that being in the state of Pennsylvania. So interesting case there. And then I'll start with Wisconsin. So in Wisconsin, this seat is currently held by a Democrat, and I think that, if I remember correctly, he's retiring, or maybe just term limited, and but if I were to call it, I think just with the national environment is really favoring Democrats. We've seen that consistently since 2024. And the state of Wisconsin, I usually have it in the tilt blue on the presidential level. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but for now I'm going to put it into the tilt blue level. And then that leaves us with Michigan. Like I said, I think Michigan is probably Republicans' first or second best hope at winning these competitive governorships. It'll be interesting to see who ends up being the nominee, But for now, I'm going to put the state into the teal blue. So there are quite a few in the teal blue category, as you can see, and I just largely view that as most Democrats in the very competitive states. I usually have most of the competitive states going to Democrats with the strong national environment we've seen as of late since 2024. So not too surprising that Democrats would end up doing well in the governorships. I think Michigan and Nevada are Republicans' best hope. I think they stand a real chance there. Georgia also a possibility, but for now we'll be ending with that. So that brings us to a tie between Republicans and Democrats, 25 seats for each.